Hello there ladies and gentlemen, TX141 here, also known as Paul, bringing you the fourth instalment of my arcade tutorial series that I like to call TX's Tips. In today's instalment we should be going over choosing upgrades for our planes, as we're gradually researching them and putting them towards fully upgraded condition. It's quite a tedious process of course, but hopefully I can outline some tips in order to ensure you have the easiest time possible in getting those upgrades and making sure that the performance of your aircraft improves as rapidly as possible. With that all being said, let's get down to business. Okay, so before we go into any of the intricacies regarding the upgrade process, we have to note that all fighters, in particular fighters because I play very little bomber activity at the moment, will require a number of upgrades before getting to fully upgraded spec. Taking the Spitfire F Mark 9 as an example here, we can see that we've got an absolute ton of upgrades to deal with, and really we have to wonder how close these are going to bring our plane from stock condition to fully upgraded condition, and what the difference in those two conditions are. As a result, I've noted over the course of my gameplay time that most fighter planes fall into two distinct categories, the 50% and the 75%, and I will now go into those categories one by one. We start off with the 50% category. This is the category I would define as the one where the plane in particular, an example being the Focke-Wulf 190 D9, is completely different when stock to when it's fully upgraded, simply because the upgrades cause a massive performance difference. The D9 is a brilliant example because of what occurs in the third and fourth tier upgrade sections. The upgrade in particular you're looking for to define a plane in my opinion as a 50% plane is this engine injection upgrade. As we can see here, it adds 325.3 horsepower to the engine and additionally increases our climb rate by 13.9 meters per second. This is a staggering increase, and if we compare this to the engine upgrade in the third tier, we can see that that only adds 133.3 horsepower to the engine and additionally 3.2 meters per second to our climb rate. These two numbers alone contribute to about a quarter of that from the engine injection, and this is why I would say that the plane performs at 50% when it's stock until it gets to 100% fully upgraded, with the engine injection upgrade alone taking you to about the 90% equivalent. Now this is not based on any mathematics in particular, it's but just from experience and from upgrading the planes. Indeed, the D9 when stock, and a lot of planes in this category when stock, will feel completely different when fully upgraded and mean that the play style changes dramatically. Another good example would be the F8f Bearcat, which you can see here. Indeed, we see there's an engine injection upgrade once again, and this alone adds 315.7 horsepower to the engine and improves our climb rate by 17.6 meters per second. This is a huge difference, and if we take a look at the engine upgrade in the third tier, we see that the engine power increase is a third of that from the engine injection, and so is the overall climb rate increase. This is actually almost a fifth. So, as a result, you can see that there's quite a distinct category here, and really one upgrade by itself contributes to upgrading the plane to probably 90% of its fully upgraded condition from stock. We then move on to our second category, which I define as the 75% category, as mentioned previously. In this category, the stock aircraft performs a lot closer to the fully upgraded specification. A very good example of this is the Yakovlev Yak 3. If we go to the modifications option, we see that there is no engine throttle upgrade here. There's only a 100 octane fuel usage upgrade. Alternatively, there may be an engine throttle rather than an engine injection upgrade, which will contribute a very similar if not less than the engine injection. As we can see with the 100 octane fuel usage upgrade, that contributes very little to our overall engine power, changing it by 31.3 horsepower and giving us a climb rate boost of 0.9 meters per second. By comparison with the tier 3 engine upgrade, we see that we only get a boost of 81.6 horsepower and 2.2 meters per second to our climb rate. From experience, the Yak 3 did actually perform very similar in stock condition to fully upgraded condition, the only difference being a slight improvement in climb rate, overall manoeuvrability and indeed acceleration on the flat, and that's why I noticed there are two distinct categories. A Yak 3 I could use straight away as I would when it's fully upgraded. A Focke-Wulf 190 D9 I had to use completely differently when stock to when it was fully upgraded. Another example of a plane in the 75% category in order to shed a little bit more light, would be the Spitfire F Mark 9. Reason being, in the 4th tier we have no engine injection upgrade, instead we have the similar engine throttle upgrade, which, whilst adding 152.5 horsepower to the engine, only improves the climb rate by 3.5 meters per second. This is nowhere near as much as what an engine injection upgrade did for, say, the Bearcat. Indeed, if we take a look at the engine upgrade in the 3rd tier, we can see that both the engine power increase and the climb rate increase are roughly 2/3 of that from the engine throttle. Hence why I say that this plane is a 75% plane rather than a 50% plane as mentioned previously. Okay, now having defined our categories, we can then move on to how I would go about upgrading planes within each category. Okay, so to start off with, I'm going to give you an example of the upgrade process I would use on a 50% category plane. A key example would be the KI-84 Kohai 80, a plane I've just bought but I haven't fully upgraded yet. In fact, I haven't got a single upgrade with it. So let us take a look at the modifications we can make. We see that in Tier 1 we need 2 upgrades to get to Tier 2. Normally I would go straight for the offensive 12mm belt over any performance upgrade, because this belt upgrade will allow me to use non-default ammunition. Therefore I'm able to do more damage with my machine guns and therefore clutch more kills or just get more assists in general. This will of course improve my overall revenue on research points, and then I can move on to doing the other upgrades. Now I've made the mistake of starting fuselage repair here, but that was because I just didn't pay attention when I first started upgrading this plane. Of course, having done the 12mm belts, we have one more upgrade we need to do. And both fuselage repair and the radiator upgrade are pretty arbitrary in themselves because they contribute very little to the overall nature of the plane. And as a result, I picked the one that provides the best climb rate upgrade, and it's the radiator one here. With 2 upgrades in the bag, we then move on to Tier 2. And whilst getting the new 12mm machine guns might be an incentive because it will reduce jamming likelihoods and the overall spread, you can compensate for this for somewhat by being very selective in your firing pattern and additionally having high weapon maintenance on your crew members. And indeed I try to aim for 40 to 50 on this skill in order to make sure my guns do not jam until after say 4 or 5 seconds. Which will be the case if you haven't got the new 12mm machine gun upgrade but high weapon maintenance. As a result, because I need 2 upgrades, I will go for the airframe and compressor upgrades because they're both performance related. Starting off with the compressor because that will improve my engine power and indeed my overall climb rate somewhat. Meanwhile the airframe will improve my overall construction strength, i.e. durability, and boost my climb rate a little bit more. This will open up Tier 3, at which point I will then go straight away to the offensive 20mm cannon belts. The reason I do this of course is so that my cannons do more damage on target. Rather than using the default belt, I can use the tracers, stealth, ground targets or universal, whichever one suits you. As a result, I'll of course earn more research points because I'm more likely to get kills or very high power criticals which lead into developed assists. With this one upgrade in the bag, I then got room for one more, and this will be the engine upgrade because this will contribute a significant portion to my engine power and my climb rate. This will instantly open up Tier 4, and as a result I will dive straight away for this engine injection upgrade because this is the one which will make all the difference to the plane. It will take it from roughly say 55% out of 100 to I'd say 95% out of 100 because of the contribution to engine power and climb rate being massive by comparison with any other upgrade on display. With the engine injection in the bag, I will then proceed to the cover upgrade and then the rest of the performance upgrades, simply because once all the planes at top spec performance, I can then throw the plane about however I choose and use it in the playstyle I want. With all the performance upgrades achieved, and I'll usually do it from the highest research points downwards, like that, I will then move on to getting the new 12mm machine guns and new 20mm cannons, starting off with the cannons simply because they're the ones that do the damage. The bomb pylons are arbitrary to me because I don't use bomb pylons, however you can integrate this in when and where necessary if you like to use bombs on your fighters. As a result, we shall now move on to a second example of an upgrade process for a 50% category plane. Okay, so our second example of a 50% upgraded plane will be the F8f Mark 1B Bearcat. I've yet to purchase this plane, although I have unlocked it, and if we go into the modification screen, we can see the absence of machine guns and just purely a cannon loadout in the form of 4 20mm cannons means that our upgrade process will change slightly. At the first tier, we see that we only need one upgrade and we've got two performance upgrades available to us, fuselage repair and the radiator upgrade. Again, these two contribute so little it's pretty arbitrary which one you choose. I would go for the one that adds to your climb rate the most, or actually adds to your climb rate, and that comes in the form of the radiator upgrade here. With this one done, you've then got access to tier 2, and immediately I will go for the offensive 20mm belts, because if my cannons are more deadly with the actual ammunition they require, then as a result I'm more likely to get research points from kills, assists and crits. With this upgrade in the bag, I will then move on to the compressor upgrade, because my plane will start to feel a performance boost and head towards 100%, although this is a very minor change. This will allow me to open up tier 3, and I will immediately get both of the performance upgrades here, because there's nothing else I can go for other than the rockets, but I did not go for the pylons in tier 2. Starting with the engine upgrade of course, because that will actually provide a little bit more engine power and a significant boost to climb rate. I will then move to wings repair, and then finally I'll start to move down into tier 4 with those two upgrades, and I will jump straight on the bandwagon to get to engine injection, because this will add to our engine power somewhat and additionally boost our climb rate by 21.3 meters per second, which is a huge change and will move this plane to roughly 95% of its final performance capacity. With that done, I will then go for the rest of the performance upgrades, starting with the cover and progressing backwards, because of course starting with the highest research points means that you'll get the most worth out of the upgrade process, in my opinion. Once done, I will then get the new 20mm cannons, and finally get the G-suit upgrade, because this one's pretty arbitrary and can be compensated for via the use of the G-tolerance performance skill in terms of your crew slot. So that would be how I upgrade a different style of 50% plane, and those are two examples there. I shall break it down at the end of this little clip by giving you a couple of charts and examples of what a 50% plane is and how I define a 50% plane. But that being said, let's begin to move on to the 75% performance upgrade process. Okay, so now looking at the upgrade process I would use for a plane that falls in the 75% category, we've got the upgrade screen here for the Spitfire F Mark 16. As we can see, this falls into the 75% category because there's an absence of an engine injection upgrade and merely the engine throttle and 150 octane fuel upgrades instead at tier 4. To start off with, we only need two upgrades to break from first tier to second. Of course, I would start off with the offensive 12mm belts to improve my overall firepower. However, we have also got access here to the offensive 20mm belts, and so these two will be done straight away rather than any performance upgrades, because both the fuselage repair and the radiator upgrades are pretty arbitrary and contribute very little to the overall nature of the plane. With my ammunition now packing a greater punch, I can then move on to the tier 2 upgrades, and I will go for the compressor, followed by the airframe upgrades, because these two performance upgrades will offset the need to upgrade my machine guns and cannons to their newer variants, which will allow me to have tighter spread and less likelihood of jamming. Instead, with small performance boosts now in the bag, in the form of the compressor and the airframe, I unlock tier 3. It's at this point that I can get the engine upgrade here, which will give me a significant horsepower boost and climb rate boost, and also the wings repair upgrade, improving my performance a little bit more. This will allow me to unlock tier 4 upgrades, at which point I will go straight for the engine throttle because this is the most powerful upgrade in the whole bag, providing 149.7 horsepower and additionally a 3.4 meters per second boost to my climb rate, and then I will go for the 150 octane fuel, because this will follow on from the engine throttle and mean that we're at full engine power and almost our maximum climb rate. Following that, it's pretty arbitrary which order you go in, although I like to go through the performance upgrade starting with the cover because this one requires the most research points normally, and then break my way back towards the first two, at which point I will then move on to the new 12.7mm machine guns and the new cannons, taking all the way to tier 4. We'll now move on to a second example of a 75% category plane. Okay, so our second example of the 75% category, which we're going to go through the upgrade process of, would be the Lag 366, with its upgrades depicted here. The first tier requires 2 to progress to the second tier, and instantly we'll go for the offensive 12mm belts, because that way we'll be able to do more damage with our machine guns, and therefore accrete more research points. The 2 flight performance upgrades here are pretty weak, and are arbitrary in their choosing. I would go for the radiator because it adds to the climb rate somewhat, although it's a very small difference. Following this, we're at tier 2, and because there are no belts available, I will jump for the compressor upgrade, followed by the airframe upgrade, because these two will increase my survivability and overall performance nature. This will also unlock tier 3, at which point I'll go for the 20mm belts, so that way I can do more damage and once again rack up more points, before going over to the engine upgrade to fulfill my second upgrade and also improve the performance of my plane somewhat. I'll then have tier 4 unlocked, and really there's only one performance upgrade available here, as we do not have the engine throttle or indeed a fuel upgrade. The cover's the only one, and this will improve both your strength and additionally your overall performance characteristics. Once done, I'll return by doing the wings repair, pardon me, and the upgrade I ignored from earlier in tier 1, before progressing to the new 12mm machine guns and the new 20mm cannons. This will mean that all my performance is fully upgraded and my armament is fully upgraded, at which point the pylons are available for you to do at your pleasure, simply because I don't really use pylons, even rockets, to take out my targets. However, these can be intermixed when and where necessary. So, I've provided 2 examples of the upgrade processes I would use for 75% category planes, and I will also provide some charts after this little speech in order to outline, more simply, the processes I would use and how I define 75% planes. And that's all there is to it really. While the upgrade process may seem a little daunting at first, over time you get used to which upgrades to pick and which ones you can scrap because they're pretty useless. Still, what works for me may not work for you and vice versa, and as a result always take everything I say, especially in these tips videos, with a little pinch of salt, just in case it doesn't work out for you. Anywho, I've been TX141, and if you've enjoyed this video, why not leave a like, comment or subscribe for future War Thunder tips and tricks videos on my channel. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care and good luck in the skies.